Well, hey everyone, it's Marcus and welcome to more Zooming in the Jungle Room. Hey, I'm heading all the way over to the UK today where I am speaking to Grant Nicholas. Grant Nicholas, of course, is from the mega iconic indie rock band Feeder. Grant, how are you today?
I'm good. How you doing?
Not too bad. And what an absolute pleasure to chat with you. I mean, seriously, your music that you've been putting out since 1997's album, which was, of course, Polythene, um, absolutely like killer, like just amazing. I mean, like, how proud of your catalog are you?
God, it's gone pretty quickly. I mean, we started really around 1992, 93 was when we really, when I first met John and we started to put a band together that became Feeder after a few years. And we did a mini album called Swim, and then we did Polythene, which was the album you mentioned. So we kind of, as people know us now, we kind of started around 94. And then, as you said, the Polythene came out, I think, 97. Because we kind of tested the water a bit with our mini album called Swim, and we had a few songs that were on that were also on Polythene, just to see what if there was any interest and how the press would receive us. And so it just sort of rather than put out the album too soon and it gets lost, and it worked really well for us. It got really good reviews, like Metal Hammer and like Kerrang magazine. They were big rock magazines. They gave us like glowing reviews and sort of loved the band, and we were like, oh wow, because we didn't know if we'd be heavy enough for those kind of magazines. And they kind of embraced us, and then it went from there really. And then here we are, like 30 years later, 12 albums later.
How bloody fast does it all go? And like you guys have consistently brought out albums, without really having a break at all. Obviously 2001 you had Echo Park, 2002 you had Comfort in Sound, back to back, just over the course of a year essentially. And those two albums really took you on to a whole nother level, didn't they?
Yeah, we were working. I mean, obviously, our first album, Polythene, did like really well for us. I mean, it actually did well in America as well. We had a song called High that was a kind of sort of radio-y hit there,
Yep.
and that it got on radio here as well. So that was a sort of start of, hey, this band aren't just a noisy, heavy band. They've got these sort of like they've got another side to them as well. And I remember we used to get labeled. They're a bit like the sort of bit kind of British Smashing Pumpkins, that kind of label, and we were getting because we had the heavy side, we had the more strict. So that started things off, and then it was also like a gradual climb. Our second album we had some singles from that that went on into the top 20, and we did like Top of the Pops, which was a big show here, and then and then Echo Park came along, and we had a that just went even bigger. And then we lost our drummer John, and then it came to a bit of a grinding halt.
Mhm.
And somehow to sort of deal with it, I locked myself away in a little studio, which is about a 5 minutes walk from where I am now.
Yeah.
And I just wrote all these songs. I didn't even know whether it would be a new Feeder record or what it would be. It was just putting all those crazy kind of emotions into songs and maybe writing songs I wouldn't have done previously. And that became Comfort and Sound, which was our biggest selling record. Even now, that was our biggest. It went like double platinum here.
I mean, like seriously, like 20 over 20 million albums sold. I mean, it's like seriously, it's no mean feat. You guys have absolutely nailed it. You're obviously, the indie rock icons from the UK, biggest, most loved rock act. Just insane. And but excitedly, you are coming back to Australia for the first time in 14 years. Why so
Yeah.
long?
Well, it's not, we've been trying to get back and it just hasn't seemed to come together. Obviously, it's a long way to travel, so it's not as easy as just, getting on the bus and going to play in Paris or whatever.
Yeah,
Obviously the cost of touring is not cheap. We have to try and make things work and get like promoters to find, to put offers in for, to even, for us to come there.
exactly.
So it's just the usual thing that every band deals with, what it's like. But yeah, it's been frustrating because number one, uh, we love playing there. We did the Soundwave Festival was the last time we were there, and we had a great time. Australian audiences are great. I actually really had a great time in Australia. Nice people, a bit more laid back there, and good food. And yeah, we were well looked after. So it's been frustrating, and obviously, Aussies like their rock and roll as well. So
Hey.
yeah, and yeah, there's some great bands there too. And it's just, yeah, it's sometimes it's not as easy to get back to places as people think. You know, it doesn't matter how successful you might be in one, one area. It's not. It doesn't mean to say you're going to be big everywhere. You have to work at it, but also you have to make it. You have to kind of set it all up, and it's taken a lot longer than expected.
But then, Grant, of course, obviously, the last few years, we've had a couple of clunky years amongst all of that where it was almost impossible to travel anywhere anyway. So,
Yeah.
we'll forgive you. Hey, I'm really happy because obviously you've put Adelaide on the schedule. You're going to be
Yeah.
playing Adelaide. So I'm from Adelaide, South Australia.
Oh, okay.
So you're going to be playing Sunday, the 6th of April, 2025 at the Lion Arts Factory. It's an
Right.
absolute killer venue. I don't know if you've been
Yeah.
there before, but a killer venue. You're going to absolutely love it. And Adelaide, I think more than any other state or any other city in Australia, I think Adelaide loves its rock more than anyone. So, you're going to have a ball here. Um,
Well, yeah, we're going to be playing. Obviously, we call it the Black Red Tour because we're still kind of this is the last sort of stage of this because obviously there's a lot of songs on the record, but we will be playing some feeder classics as well. So anyone who's saying, oh, I hope they play some old stuff, we're going to try and like squeeze as much in as we can. So we'll do some stuff from the first record. We try and do just pick some favorites. So it'll be a bit of a mixture, but obviously we'll be playing some new stuff as well.
Hey Grant, let's go back to the beginning. You've probably been asked this a million times, but the name Feeder, how did you come up with that name?
I don't know. I think I got the name from a fishing book originally because I think at the time it was all like Britpop and we didn't really tick that box. And this is why it was so hard for us to get a record deal at the time. And there was a lot of I think there was loads of bands with that. I don't know if maybe it's not like that anymore, but there was always sort of trends with names, and wasn't it? And just the way they looked on posters. And I think there was bands like in America, you had like Breeders and Sleeper. There was a band here called Sleeper. They were like Britpoppy. You had the Breeders from America and just the two E's. And I quite liked the way it looked. And I remember looking at, it's just going through books, trying to get a name that hadn't been used. And I was like, feedback, music, like feedback from an amp. Oh, nah, maybe that's not very cool. And and I remember I used to go fishing when I was a kid. There's a thing called a swim feeder. And I was like, feeder, it's quite interesting. And it just stuck. And I like the way it looked, with the three E's, and it was a good name to, you could chant it, feeder at festivals. It was just, some names are too complicated, aren't they?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
okay.
simple, and it looked kind of good when it was written, and it looked good on the logo. It was as simple as that, really. There was stories about, oh, my pet goldfish was called feeder, things like this, but it did come from the whole fish like fishing thing. That's where the name originally came to me from. But it was just a name that kind of seemed to fit. It sort of visually just fitted that period in time musically.
Well, and you know what? There's no point changing it now.
There's not. I mean, I probably would change it if I could, but it's just I'm used to it now. And when you hear people chanting it at a big festival, it's kind of cool. It's like sounds like a foot. You're chanting a football team. So
Feeder, feeder. Hey, like you said, like 30 years now, 30 years on. Hey, so obviously in those 30 years, you've seen a lot of changes happening. Obviously the way we consume our music has totally changed. Do you find the music industry easier to navigate now or harder to navigate? What's your opinion?
Oh, that's a good question. Now, I mean, it's certainly very different. I mean, social media and all that, and it's just a whole different world. I mean, like the whole physical side of CD sales. I mean, when we were going in the 90s, it was a big thing, and you could make that was a big part of your income. Now that's kind of tiny. So your main income as a band now, big or small, is from playing live,
Yep.
and that's hard, especially for young bands because you're playing in small places. The fees are terrible, and it doesn't even cover the higher cost for the van or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, it's like yeah, it's different. It's a different climate. I think it's easier to get your music out there now than it used to be because technology has come on. You can make music a lot. You can make a great album in your back garden now, whereas in the old days you usually had to go to a studio and that. So you can make you can do things cheaply in that way. But there's also everyone can do that. So there's almost an awareness where there's so many bands as well. So I suppose it feels even more competitive in a weird kind of way.
Yep.
But it's just it's just a very different world now than it was I mean, I have to admit, I do miss the 90s. It was a great time.
It was a good time.
It was definitely a bit more of a rock and roll time because everything's so much more everything's it's sort of under the microscope, isn't it now? Everything you do in life, it's like it's everything's a bit more, you have to be a bit more careful about what you do. Everyone's a bit more aware of that, I think now. I think going back to the 70s, so going back to the sort of 90s, and even like I guess the 80s were probably even more crazy.
Yeah.
um it's just, yeah, look, I'm not saying it's still not, there is still some rock and roll moments and you still got to have, you still got to have fun, but it's just a slightly different world now, and I think that's affected the music business a little bit as well.
Grant, let's stay back in the 90s for a little bit. When you were putting the band together,
Yeah.
who were you listening to? Who were your inspirations at the time?
Oh God, I mean, I sort of come from a small town in Wales, so I grew up listening to. I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you guys from Australia, but I'm, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, the Police, and then before that, when I was really young, it was like pop music, like ABBA, things like that, and the Carpenters,
Yeah,
Fleetwood Mac, all those kind of, Son of Garfunkel. So I have a really, but then I'm into really, I love really heavy music, but I love songs. So and I think that the reason why I probably write a lot of the stuff and feed it sounds the way it does is, but probably because those influences, because I had a really quite eclectic sort of musical education, whether it's what my mates were playing me. I had a mate that moved over I had a friend that came from New York, so he introduced me to a lot of American music, even a lot of AOR, um, and Feeder, even when we're heavy, we're still melodic, and I think it's probably just in my blood, just from listening to that kind of music, like growing up, and just that mix of music,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I was into that Sex Pistols, but I also like Kate Bush,
yeah, totally.
why not? And I think nowadays, I think music's become a lot more. I think when I was growing up, and certainly even in the 90s with the Brit pop, they called it grunge. And it was always like scenes and all that. I think now there's kind of less of that, which I think is a good thing. I think it's just anything goes. I think if it's a good song, I don't think kids, really care.
Yeah.
You can be into Idols, you can be into Fontaines DC, and and then you might go and see a Taylor Swift gig. It was just bizarre world, but I think music now is not so, it's not so trend led. You're always going to have cool bands that come through, like a few I just mentioned.
Yeah,
I don't think they were following any trend. I think they just did it and it just happened to become successful. And I think that's quite a healthy thing.
I think
Uh,
so.
yeah, I think so. I think, I'm into all sort of different types of music. What we do with Feeder is music that, that we, that feels, uh, is, what we like most, and what we are most as a band. But it doesn't mean to say we don't listen and appreciate other types of music as well.
Yeah, I agree that. And
Yeah,
it's as a creative person, I think you need to be open to all forms of creativity, right? You know,
definitely. Yeah, yeah. I
at
mean,
least appreciate it.
oh,
You don't have to listen to it, but appreciate it at least.
yeah. And also, if you're in a band, I mean, you said you play, yeah. As you play, do you say? Yeah. I
Sing.
mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I'm not saying every song people write is going to be a good song. There's some awful songs, but the process of going in and making a song, recording it, it takes time, and it is a creative thing, and it's like it's easy to say, oh, that's terrible, but you have to remember that even some really bad pop music, there is still some producer putting the hours in, and it's like it is a creative process. It can, I know there's certain types of music, it can be a bit of a sausage factory. You can churn out that formula. But I think for real bands that still have that kind of, they're into songs and stuff like that, I think I still think that, there is bands who are still doing that. And I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, such an intelligent response. Absolutely. Um, hey, who would you, if you had the opportunity to collaborate with any contemporary artist now, who would it be? Who would you like to really work with?
God, that's a tough one. I mean, I'm pretty old school, so I'd probably say that loads of people that go, oh my God, it's all the people listening. I've already mentioned a lot of artists that I listened to and grew up with. I mean, on the American side, it was people like Neil Young, Tom Petty, stuff like that. But but if it's, I mean, I've sort of mentioned a few of the bands. I mean, I think Idols are really good. I like the energy they've got. They remind me of that. I mean, they call themselves a punk band, but I don't know if it's really punk. Wherever it's, maybe it's like what kids call punk nowadays. But I just like the kind of they're not scared to say things. Yeah, they have an opinion, and I think that's quite brave, especially in this day and age. So I think Idols are a cool band. I still would like to work with artists that are probably from my generation as well. People like, PJ Harvey. I still like, I know Billy Corgan gets a lot of stick, for Smashing Pumpkins, but I think he's a great writer, and I still would do, if I had the chance yet to co-write with him, I would. Uh, I wouldn't say no to Dave Grohl playing some drummers on feeder tracks.
Yay. I
He's
love
not, he's not very popular at the moment, I know, but I'm sure he'll be fine.
it.
I think, I think Radiohead are a great band. So any of the members from Radiohead, I think they're all very talented. Oh God, there's so many. I mean, I wouldn't mind working with people that you would least expect as well.
Yeah, cool.
It's more of a challenge.
Yep.
I mean, I was going to write some stuff, for Robbie Williams, and people go, Robbie Williams. I was like, well, I'm a song guy, and it's not that different. Okay, he's a different kind of artist, but the right song, I'm sure I could write something. If you break down a lot of his songs, they're quite traditional songs, really, a lot of them. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just something that's a challenge or something different as well.
I like that. Hey, so when you get to Australia, obviously you all haven't been here for quite a while. Is there something
Yeah.
you're really looking forward to doing when you get here?
Oh, just relaxing. Yeah, you know what? I mean, probably a few nice beers and stuff. I mean, the food's really good there. I mean, I remember being really, I remember being like, pretty impressed with the food when we were there last time. I just want to we're just playing to, just going to play to new audiences on the other side of the world is great. And the fact we can do that, with music that we've created is a real honor. And I just think we just want to come out there and do the best shows we can, just have a lot of fun. And what we want to do is really connect with people there in the audience. So that's the most important thing for us. If people have a good time, then we have a good time. That's the key. Well, whether it's Australia or London, whatever, or the UK, whatever. That's always been our what we try and do. Uh, so yeah, that's the plan.
I like it. Well, when you get to Adelaide, I'm going to give you a list of all the good restaurants, the cafes, and the bars, because obviously they've
Yeah,
changed a lot over the last 14 years. So I'm going to give you a nice fresh list, and you can check out all the best.
that sounds good, man. Obviously there's the temptation to really party, which I know we're getting on a bit. We still like to have a good time, but
Of course you do.
I just gotta make sure I can sing the set the next night.
I love it. Grant Nicholas, you are an absolute legend. I want to say congratulations on the brand new double album. Of course, Feeder is coming, everybody, to Adelaide and doing the Australian tour in 2025, but coming to Adelaide on the 6th of April, the Lion Arts Factory. Make sure you get out and get your tickets. I'll put the link in the post that I do with this video. And Grant Nicholas, I'm super duper looking forward to catching up with you in 2025.
Hey, thanks a lot, man. And yeah, hopefully you'll be around to come and see the show.
I will be there. Absolutely.
Take care.
Feeder, feeder. See you, buddy. Bye bye.
Yeah, you're gonna be chanting. I'll be listening out for it.
Have a great day. See
Take
you.
care, man. Bye.
Bye.